Hey, it's NPR's Book of the Day. I'm Andrew Limbong. Elvira K. Gonzalez's life sounds like it could be three different memoirs. One, her mother was kidnapped. Two, she, Elvira, was sent to juvenile detention. And three, she found some solace in running hurdles only to be preyed upon by coaches. But she writes about all of this in her memoir, Hurdles in the Dark. And in this interview with Here and Now's Deepa Fernandes, you hear a common theme throughout all of these threads. They all involve her taking care of someone else, putting someone else's life, well-being, feelings before her own. Which, when you think about that, it kind of makes sense when you find out what she does for a living now. That's ahead.
Support for this podcast and the following message come from the Southern Environmental Law Center, the South's largest environmental advocate and protector. SELC is dedicated to tackling the toughest environmental challenges by protecting our air, water, land, wildlife, and the people that live there. Learn more at southernenvironment.org.
This message comes from Progressive and its Name Your Price tool. Say how much you want to pay for car insurance, and they'll show coverage options within your budget. Visit Progressive.com. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Price and coverage match limited by state law.
In the new book for young adults, Hurdles in the Dark, Elvira is a Hispanic girl growing up in Laredo, Texas. She runs fast, she wins medals in middle school, and she beats boys who challenge her. But when she's 14, Elvira has an even greater demand for speed. Her mother is kidnapped, and Elvira has only one day to raise $40,000 to ransom her. And so begins a different kind of sprint that wins her mother's freedom, but lands Elvira in juvenile detention. When she gets out, Elvira is determined to never go back. Athletics may provide a solution, but her natural talent brings her as much trouble as it does opportunity. Hurdles in the Dark is the memoir of author Elvira K. Gonzalez. In the book and during her childhood, she uses her middle name, Christy, but as an adult, she uses her first name, Elvira. Elvira, welcome to Here and Now.
Hi, I'm so excited to be on here.
I'd love to start with your early childhood. Tell me about where you grew up and about your family.
Yes, and just like you said, I'm from Laredo, Texas. It is a border town. So I felt like I was growing up more in a Mexican culture than American, it seems like. And it's so vibrant. The community is amazing. But unfortunately, just because it is in a border town, there are so many challenges that young people face there. And it's just beautiful. Music, the Tejano culture, the food. I have to say the food is amazing.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's dive in, because when you're barely a teen, you're just 14, your mother is kidnapped by narcos while she's at a wedding reception in Mexico, just across the border from where you live. You, being a teenager with some attitude, were not kidnapped because you refused to accompany your mum to the wedding, which ends up likely saving all your lives. And we don't want to give away too much about what happens, but I want you to talk about what it felt like as a 14-year-old to get that call from kidnappers and realize that you had to save your mother's life.
I couldn't believe that things like that would happen to me. You know, you hear that in the newspaper where I'm from or about other people in my community, but never really thought that would happen to my family. It's very shocking. Definitely felt like it was a dream, and those 24 hours just went by really, really fast. So much happened in that time, and I really do think that experience in that moment kind of made me grow up really fast because I kind of had to.
Yeah, and what was amazing too was that the people who stepped up to save your mum, and stepped up meaning like put their hard-earned cash down, were some of the poorest people in your neighborhood. Talk to me about that, because, you know, there were wealthy people who your mum knew who really didn't offer much help. It was people with very little who gave everything they had.
That was shocking to me, right? As a 14-year-old, like, well, let's talk to the people who have a lot of money. I'm sure they would give us money, but unfortunately that didn't happen. And also in a place like Laredo, where the kidnappings do happen, it's something you hear about growing up. I don't know if that was the issue, that people didn't want to know, like that people gave money and they might be a target. But at the end of the day, yeah, my teenage friends who were also 14 at the time and grew up in lower income communities, they got their families to give money to the ransom and also my mother's friends. So I was pretty surprised about that.
You know, after your mum survives the kidnapping and you all are a family again, things are never the same. You know, I think I had this hope that everything's going to be okay, but your mum's traumatized, you're traumatized. She can't really parent you, and she ends up calling the police on you, and you end up in juvie. You didn't do anything to deserve juvenile detention. Why did your mum do that?
I think at the end, my mom was just kind of really overwhelmed. She was only 32 at the time, and I'm actually 32 now. And I can't imagine what I would do or how I would feel going through something like that. But on the other side, it was very scary. I didn't know what I was going to do because I knew I was going to go to juvenile hall. And I tried to tell, the police, like, hey, like this is due to, the kidnapping. Can you please take me somewhere else? And, I probably sound like a crazy person telling the story about the kidnapping. But so I went to juvenile hall, and it was just very, very scary. One of the scariest things I think I've gone through. I mean, the kidnapping as well, but definitely being in a cell, and it's dark, and it's just, I was a kid.
So you survive a kidnapping of your mum. You survive juvenile detention. Let's get to your athletics, because it almost seemed like this was the part that saved you. And you saw hurdling as a way to get to college, something that's very out of reach for others in your community. But you have to break into your school at like 5 a.m., jump a locked fence in the dark just to access a running track to be able to practice. You watch YouTube videos to coach yourself. Why?
Something about the hurdles was just, I was gravitating towards that, knowing that I'm not good at it, but I think that I can. If I put my mind into it and practice, this could be my ticket to get an education and be the first one in my family to do so. So, yeah, I would crawl up the fence and hoping I don't get caught and end up back in juvenile hall. Because it's dark, you can barely see me. So I learned to hurdle in the dark. And, it was definitely challenging, but I definitely think that helped me become a stronger hurdler.
And you end up finding a coach, a man in his late 30s who agrees to coach you for free. But then this coach, it turns out he actually did want something from you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, after training, I thought he was like a father figure, spending so much time with him and him getting to know my story and why I wanted to do this, why it meant a lot to me. And I think to become an elite athlete, there's definitely strong relationships between coach and athlete, but it could become blurred, right? If there's no boundaries, like strong boundaries. So that definitely happened. And we had an inappropriate relationship, and it just turned very, very unhealthy.
And you kind of experienced, as a teenager, sexual abuse by 2 coaches. Why couldn't you tell anyone as it was happening?
At the time, I felt that no one was going to believe me, because how could these amazing coaches in our community, how could they do this to someone like me and other young girls, right? There were other young girls with the other coach. So I just didn't think that anyone would believe me. And I was thinking about my future. Like, if I say something, are they going to take away my opportunities? This is my way out, my ticket to freedom. And also feeling like I needed to honor this secret between me and my private coach was always hanging in my head, and feeling
That's
like
so much to carry.
Yeah, it was a lot for a teenager, anyone in general, but definitely after going through all the kidnapping and the juvenile hall, I was like, my mother is going to be in so much distress.
So you were constantly protecting others. And you say this in your book, how few other Latinas there are in athletics. And I imagine that made it even harder for you.
Yes, definitely.
And then you make it through high school, you make it through all of these experiences, and you go on to be a coach yourself. You get to work with young people of color in athletics, especially girls. What do you bring to coaching that comes from your own experience of being coached?
I try to be very aware of the boundaries, and I'm hoping that I've taught kids about boundaries, because that's very essential for sports. And there's a lot of complexities in coaching, and I don't know if people are aware of it, but the sexual abuse part is I would say is common, and I've heard it among my own athletes, and it's very scary. So I hope that I've taught my athletes about boundaries.
And for us, you're coaching young people to write now, to tell their stories. You have a whole section of resources for girls who might be in the same situation as you are at the back of your book. What's the message you most want to send to those girls?
Yes, to not only girls and young boys, both. I would like to share that they are not alone and their voice matters. And so if anyone's going through something similar, definitely there are resources in the back of the book, but definitely talking to someone who is a trusted family member or a counselor, that's very important, especially when I mentioned the boundaries. And also that their story matters, right? Often we're like, oh, our story doesn't matter, but it does matter. And it matters to a lot of people and to me.
Well, congratulations on the book, Elvira K. Gonzalez. Her new book for young adults, Hurdles in the Dark. It's a page turner. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Rosetta Stone, an expert in language learning for 30 years. Right now, NPR listeners can get Rosetta Stone's lifetime membership to 25 different languages for 50% off. Learn more at rosettastone.com/NPR.
This message comes from NPR sponsor Mint Mobile. From the gas pump to the grocery store, inflation is everywhere. So Mint Mobile is offering premium wireless starting at just $15 a month. To get your new phone plan for just $15, go to mintmobile.com/switch.